Hey everyone, this is Brian Hank with another strategic analysis. This time I'm doing the game Ra. Though as with all my videos, I'm not going to go over the rules or do a review of the game. If you're watching this, you probably have played it and probably want to play it more because I'm going to tell you how to win. There is no real magic bullet to Ra. You have to take a series of good actions and bid at opportune times. You have to adapt to what the game throws at you, and you can't play the same game every time and win. You can't just go for monuments and expect to win every game. You need to play for the epic point totals, do decently there, and then have a competitive score during the final end game totals too. So yeah, I'll go over right now just a loose strategy for each epic. The first epic, you will want to get some of those permanent tiles. So the Pharaohs and Niles are going to be more important. You also want to keep an eye on how many Ra's are dropping, because if a lot of Ra tiles drop early in Epic 1, you're going to have a longer Epic 2 and Epic 3, so you'll be able to be more selective in when you use your suns, when you bid on your auctions. So that's important. You're always wanting to keep an eye on that, but also all of the different tiles too. You should know whether you got a lot of the civ tiles, the civilization tiles. If you get a lot in the first epic, then you're not going to get as many in epics 2 and 3. So those are going to increase in value. Don't be afraid to get some monuments early on too, especially in a 3 or 4 player game. In a 5-player game, the monuments are tougher to get. So you're going to probably just want to go for 3 or 4 of one particular type and not really worry about getting the unique bonus for the unique monuments. So yeah, that's good. So Epic 2, you'll again really just want to be going for that Epic 2 point total round, while the point total at the end of Epic 2. But you'll also want to keep an eye on the contents of the bag again. Still should know how many Ra tiles there are if a lot of them drop. Or if not so many do. And then Epic 3, you're trying to complete those monuments. You're trying to get 3, 4, 5 of one particular type, or maybe try to get the unique bonus there. Unique bonus isn't that important, don't worry too much about that. But also, obviously, trying to land your floods if you have a lot of rivers. But yeah, that's about it. Don't worry about the coin totals at the end. In your last 2 or 3 bids in the epic, try to maybe grab that extra coin total bonus, so that +5 points, and avoid the -5 points. And yeah, that's about it for the loose strategy. So I'm talking about the bag contents. For every Ra tile, you should have 5 non-Ra tiles. So that includes disasters too. So, but that should give you a good gauge as to whether you're getting a lot of Ra tiles in the first epics or not so much. And in Epic 1, it should be kind of a good gauge as to where you should be bidding, what you can expect on the auction track if you have the highest value sun. If you have that, you're going to expect to fill up the auction track at least a couple times, so that's good to keep in mind. Here is an example of just one kind of snapshot of a Ra game. You can see that it's divided into quadrants, so we have player 1 in the lower right, player 2 lower left, player 3 upper left, and player 4 upper right. They have each used just one of their suns. And you can see the Ra track in the center has 3 Ra's on it so far. The auction track below it has a civ tile and a god tile. And to show which ones are unique, I have the civ tile on the track is of type A. You can see that player 2 has a civ tile of type B and C. So this would be their 3rd unique one. So this would give them that 5-point bonus there. And this, the reason we're looking at this example right now, this is a very crucial time for player 1, because they have a 2 and a 13 for their suns. So they have a very low sun and a very high sun, and they need to decide which strategy to go with. This is it's a tough call. they could either invoke Ra right now and hope that somebody would take the auction for one of their 7, 8, or 9 sons. Normally this wouldn't be worth that to everyone, but the fact that it's we're already halfway done with this epic, as you can see 5 of the 9 Ra's have already been pulled. So this is it's now a really tough call. Player 1 would have to know his or her opponents and know whether somebody would take this or not, and they might hear discussion on the table too that might help them decide. But they could go either way. Their other option would be to let that auction track fill up as much as possible because they have the highest sun in the game. So the best call here, because without knowing anything about the players, I wouldn't think anyone would bid on the track right now. It's possible they would, especially that player 2. It's probably the best deal for them to get that 5-point bonus. And the God too. The God tile is probably worth about 4, just because you can use it later on in this epic to just grab whatever you need from the auction track. So it's possible, but the safe bet here is to just let it fill up and hope to fill up the whole thing, or get a really, really good track and use that 13. Okay, now I'm going to talk about using suns, bidding for things on the auction track. It's a way to get, you can get an edge over your opponents if you just manage your suns efficiently. What you want to do is, well, even no matter if you have a lot of the big suns or a lot of the small suns, you can be successful no matter what you have. So if you have big suns, I like to call the highest sun at the nuts. So if you have the nuts, nobody can beat you when you bid. If you want to win an auction track, you can. So you want to continue to add things to the auction track pretty much no matter what. Hopefully you can fill up that track and get a really sweet deal for your highest sun. So that's what generally you want to do if you have the nuts. If you have a really high sun, like if you have the nuts and then you have a very low one as well, it's tempting to try to bid frequently to use up that low sun, but you need to use the biggest sun early. Once you get about halfway to the raw track being filled up, the value of the highest sun quickly diminishes because people start getting worried about the epic coming to an end. They bid more frequently. The auction track does not fill up. So you want to have used the biggest sun in halfway through the epic. Yeah, it's pretty important. So on the other side of things, if you have a lot of the low suns, you will want to call for raw frequently because you can't win the very large auction tracks, so you'll have to settle for some of the smaller ones. They can still be very valuable, but you just need to bid sooner. So if you have a lot of the small suns, you're probably going to be bidding every time it comes around to your turn, and people will probably be very annoyed by you. But that's going to be your best bet. It's just to call raw very, very frequently if you think you can get anything decent for your sun tokens. If nothing else, you're going to be forcing people to bid. If a flood hits and somebody really needs a flood, they might be forced to use a higher token for that flood and very little else just to make sure that they get it. So you're going to come out ahead if you do that in small suns and bid frequently. Going back to this example, we've got 5 Ra's that have already hit the raw track. So the epic is half over, and you can see that nobody has used half of their suns yet, so that should be a big warning sign. Everybody is behind. Everybody is behind right now in the auction. So that makes the higher valued suns less valuable because now it's harder to let the auction track fill up anymore. People are going to be invoking raw left and right. And those high suns are not going to go for what they would if it was earlier in the epic without as many raws. So that's something that I just wanted to point out and illustrate here. Alright, I got a few more notes on using suns and bidding in raw. One thing that's important, you really want to use all of your suns every epic. Don't go crazy and just bid immediately right away on anything that is worth remotely anything to you, of course. But once that raw track starts filling up, you got to use those suns, because I mean, if you just save your high suns for next round, you don't know what you're going to get next round either. So it's really important to just lock down points for the round and points for the game. You'd be surprised at just how many of those kind of small bits of points add up to a victory at the end. So I mean, that's important to use them all, but I mean, at the end of an epic, if there's one raw tile left, and you have a small sun, other people have suns that can beat you, you're probably not going to win anything. So just grab one tile, or maybe even just grab something high for the next epic. So I mean, it's important to use all your suns, but that sun token in the middle is very important too. So that should every time you're valuing an auction, make sure you keep the sun you're going to get for the next epic in mind too. It's part of the value of the auction. And if you think about what you can expect to get with a 2 or a 3 compared to what you can get for like a 12 or a 13, the difference is pretty major. So that previous epic, when you traded your 2 or 3 for a 12, you'll be a lot happier with what you're going to get for that 12 in the next epic. So that is important too. Also, I mean, I kind of touched on this before, but almost nobody calls raw enough. Do not be afraid to call raw. It's very important. I mean, I know if somebody hands you a bag of mystery, and you just want to pull out a tile from it and see if you get some sort of prize inside. I know it's tempting, but so frequently the right move is to call raw, and they don't. They grab a tile and add value to an auction track. They might not be able to win. There's a good chance they can't win it. So keep in mind, look at it. Really, there's two most important times when you want to call raw every time. Would be one when the auction track is just out of your price range. You have lower tiles. It's already worth more than what you can afford. So don't add more value to that auction track. Just invoke raw immediately. You won't win, but maybe something crazy happens, everybody else passes, and you can steal that for the auction track for a good deal. Probably won't happen, but what you're really trying to do is get other people to bid on an auction track that's worth less than if you were to add more to it. Another time when you should definitely call raw every time is when you have like high and low suns, and the auction track is currently worth more than your low sun or suns, and it's not going to be worth enough for you using your high sun. At that point, you don't want to just add value to the track for someone kind of in the mid-range to get a good deal on it. Just call for raw now, force someone to bid on it at its current value, and again, worst case, you have to use one of your low suns to get the current auction track, which is probably a pretty good deal for you. So that is about it. Now I'm going to go over kind of each of the tiles very briefly, starting with the Pharaoh. And Pharaoh is good early on. I mentioned earlier at the start of the video that Pharaohs are good in Epic 1. They're permanent, and you can get 5 points for them each round. So if you load up on them early in the game, you can get those 5 points each epic. And in the end, it's worth 15 points. 15 points is a ton. It's probably a third of all the points you're going to need to win the game. So it is big. Steal them early, and then people won't worry too much about bidding on them later in the game. If you can just get out to a big Pharaoh lead, then people won't really try to catch you. And then usually, as the game goes on, it's so good to have those permanent tiles early, but near the end they lose value as the game goes on, because you don't get them for as many rounds in total, as many epics in total. So they're worth less in Epic 3. Of course, if it's something that's going to prevent you from getting the lowest Pharaohs or get you to the highest, then that's 5 points or 2 points worth to you. So oftentimes it is still very valuable to bet on them late game. So here we have the previous example, but a Pharaoh has now hit the auction track. So this will help. This would help players 1, 2, and 4. Any of those who would win this would currently be in the would join player 3 in having the most Pharaohs. So that's worth 5 points. So that's pretty big. It would also mean that they don't get the -2 points for the Pharaohs for having the least. And of course, the epic isn't over. There's still 4 raw tiles to hit the track, but you can still feel fairly confident that if this won't be the final Pharaoh state, that it should still help you either not have the least or have the most. Yeah, it's worth quite a bit to everyone here, and then not only just getting those points, but preventing the other players from getting the points too. So that might be motivation for player 3 to take this, just because that means players 1, 2, and 4 will all currently have the least amount of Pharaohs. So that's -2 points for each player. It doesn't necessarily get anything for them this epic, but it just prevents other people from getting anything. If someone were to join player 3 in having the most Pharaohs, that's another 5 points for that player. So it's really 7 points for that player because they no longer get -2 and they now get 5. So it's pretty big motivation for player 3 too. So that Pharaoh hitting the track actually added a lot of value really for everyone. So for Niles and Floods, the Nile is another thing that is good early on, but loses value as the game progresses. It's the opposite oftentimes for the Flood. The Flood usually doesn't help you too much early in Epic 1. People haven't gotten enough Niles, haven't gotten many Niles, so it's not very valuable. I don't really like the Nile Flood strategy. It's hard to base. You're not going to get enough points off of them to win the game for you. It can supplement and put someone over the top if it's a close game. But the biggest thing I don't like about it is that you become such a target. When you see someone with maybe 9 Niles lined up in front of them, all they're doing is looking for that Flood to finish it off and score that big 10 point for the epic, then you want to stop them. They might not even be winning, but sometimes a Flood will hit and you will try to take that auction just to spite them, to keep them from getting those 10 points, because it's pretty big. I've seen it so many times in this game. So that's one reason I really don't like it. You just become a pretty big target, and it's a lot of points, but it's kind of a lot of work to get those points. So I value a Nile at about a 1, really. So most tiles are better than the Nile. So yeah, I guess that's them. Gods, the God tiles. Gods are the best tile in the game, hands down. They are the best single tile anyway. What you usually want to do with a God is you want it before your last. You don't want to win it when you use your last sun for the epic, obviously, because then you don't have an opportunity to actually use the God. It's just worth 2 points for you. I mean, 2 points isn't bad, not bad at all. And maybe even if you want to do that to go out, you might steal it from someone else who could use it more appropriately to steal something. But yeah, normally you want to have at least another sun left, and you can kind of sit back and just snipe pieces off the auction track that you really want to grab. It's great if you do go with the Nile Flood strategy. You can grab that Flood without someone being able to steal the auction from you. You can get a gray tile that's worth 5 points, a Civ tile. You can get a monument you need. It's just so powerful, and you can use it. You can use it for whatever strategy you happen to be going for. But yeah, usually your main goal is to do something that will get you, grab something that will get you 5 points. Don't grab something that might get you 5 points later. You really want to make sure you're getting something definitely more than the 2 value, because that God is worth a 2 to you, regardless if you don't use it. So yeah, gods are awesome. So here's this example again. I added I added 6 Niles to player 4, and so you can see just imagine how a god might be used for each player right now. So if you think about what player 4 would want to do with a god, they have a flood, so they have 6 rivers. So if they were to grab that flood with the god tile, that would be it would be worth 7 to them, which is way more than the value of the god if they were to just end the epic with it, just the 2 points. So if player 4 did have a god, then they could use it for 7 points. So obviously that's five better than the 2 points they'd otherwise get for the god. So that would be awesome. Because that unrest right now, if they were to just try to win this auction, the unrest would kill the flood and the Nile. So this would save them from losing that flood. If you were player 1, you could use it to just grab the gold. You know that the god's going to be worth 2 to you. So if you were to grab the gold, you'd at least get something worth 3. You wouldn't want to do that now because it's way too early in the epic to do that. But it'd be kind of a last resort later on. But player 1, really any of the players could also grab the Pharaoh. Player 4 wouldn't want to; they definitely want to go for the flood. But so if player 4 were to just go for the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh state would stay the same, of course that would be worth 7 points to them. They wouldn't lose the 2 for having the least Pharaohs, and then they would tie and have the most, and so that would be worth 7. But we've talked about that. That's definitely an option. The flood is a guaranteed 7 right now. So that's kind of a toss-up for player 4, but obviously players 1 and 2 would want to get that Pharaoh, so that's just so crucial right now, and then it can be used in future epics too. So yeah, that's you can just see how powerful a god can be. It can be worth a ton of points, and again, last resort's worth 2. That's still something. That's still not bad. Civilization tiles, they are important just because they are worth 5 points. It's 1 tile worth 5 points, so make sure you grab one of these early on in the epic. I would, if you can, grab it early too. Then you can maybe even grab 3 different types of civ tiles. Don't worry too much about that. Don't use that as a planned strategy for an epic, is to get 3 different types of the civ tiles. That's just something that if it happens, that's great. Take advantage of it. This 5 points is pretty big, but just the big thing is just grab one of these civ tiles every epic. Incredibly important. And then monuments, they are the key to winning a 3 to 4 player game because you have a lot more leeway for which monuments you have the chance to grab. You will go through a lot of them, but you're one of 4 people or 3 people who are going for a certain monument, so you just have a much better chance of getting them. In a 5-player game, there's just too many people, too much contention for those monuments, so don't kill yourself in a 5-player game trying to go for the monuments. But oftentimes, in a 3 to 4 player game, monuments will determine the winner. So they are quite important. I mentioned earlier, they should be valued at about a value of 2 usually, and then obviously more when you start getting that 3rd monument's of course worth 5 points late at the end of the game, and then that 4th is another 5 points. So that really just look at it that way. Obviously the value increases the more you get. So yeah, 5-player game, just go for the duplicates of the same type, and then 3 to 4 player game, really just get anything you can. They will be important. Disasters, they suck. Yeah. They can be used though to your advantage. Like I mentioned the Nile flood strategy earlier. The drought disaster just kills that strategy because it kills floods first. So that's another reason why I don't like the flood Nile strategy. Droughts just kill you. So, but yeah, they can take someone out. If someone has 9 rivers and a flood, a drought hits and they're out. They can't bid. Pretty much no matter what falls on the auction track, they're out. So You can disregard their sons. You know they're not going to bid. It's kind of good. I mean, same thing too with the unrest that will take out civ tiles. If someone, that's worth 5 points to everyone. So a lot of times those civ disasters, the unrest, will take people out of contention of winning an auction. So use it to your advantage. But then again, be careful too, because don't grab an unrest if it's going to lose you 5 points, and the auction track will only gain you 5. So common sense. So yeah, they can be bad. Use them to your advantage if you can. So here's this example again. You can see that the unrest there in the middle, that will destroy the flood and the Nile that's currently on the auction track. So you can imagine when that unrest hit for the 4th item on the track, player 4's heart just dropped because they knew that they were really hoping for a flood. The track is still useful really to anyone. It's just that that player 4 just lost the opportunity to grab that flood. So, but still, if you take out those 3, it's still worth a lot to everybody because that Pharaoh is still there. So as we talked about before, that could give players 1, 2, and 4 a 7-point bonus because they would no longer have the least Pharaohs and they would now have the most Pharaohs. So that's a 7-point change. So that's pretty big. I mean, obviously, player 4 would love to have that flood because that's also a 7 points for them. But it's still fairly valuable to everyone. But you can see how much that unrest can really hurt everyone here. So, for example, if player 4 already had a flood, they absolutely could not bid on this because then the unrest would take out the flood that they currently have and the one on the track, and that would then they would lose all those points for those Niles. So that would really take them out of it. I think it's worth mentioning a little bit about what you might want to call table talk, I guess. It can actually work pretty well in Raw if you help people out where you can with conversations. So when you notice a monument drop on the track that would give someone 3, or one that would give them the unique 7 unique monument bonus, or that kind of thing, something that will really help someone. Flood drops, and they have a whole bunch of Niles. Point it out, make sure everybody knows, because sometimes people get involved in the game and they just kind of forget about that, looking for that kind of thing. So if you notice it, make sure everybody else does too. It might not prevent them from winning, but it will probably make them have to spend a little more to get whatever they're trying to get. And then of course, on the other side of the coin, if something drops that you really need, just act quickly. Throw down Invoke Ra. Try to get this thing over with as quickly as possible and snag that without people talking about it too much. So it might seem a little underhanded, but you could even go, if you really wanted, as far as something drops that you need. You could start a conversation about the local football team or something that will just distract people, so that you can grab the auction without people really fight you too much for it. So I just thought it might be worth mentioning that can be pretty good. And then just some miscellaneous things. I would discourage doing anything like the kind of letting it ride at the end. If you have some low sons and you're not going to get anything by fighting others for auctions, you can go for the let it ride strategy. Or if you're way behind in points, you can try it too. Where you try to be the last one with sons left, so you can let the auction track fill up and maybe even win 8 tiles for like 2 or 3 sons. So I wouldn't recommend that except in extreme cases. But otherwise, like I said at the beginning, Raw is about making good choices throughout the whole game. Just being able to understand the value of each auction, and then also not only the value to you, but the value to others too. If you just keep in mind who's winning right now, who you're kind of fighting for first place in a game, that's who, especially in Epic 3, who you might want to steal something worth a lot to them and not much to you, just to prevent them from getting points. Because If it is just down to you and one other person at the end, every time you can prevent them from getting points, you might as well be adding it to your total instead, because they're the ones who you're really going to be fighting for at the end. But yeah, otherwise, just you got to make good decisions. You need to know the value of everything and get those epic points. Those are incredibly important, but then also stay competitive at the end for the final game tally of points. And that will be the best opportunity you can to win the game. But again, even a newbie can beat a veteran just because there's a lot of luck involved in drawing tiles from a bag. So all you can do is give yourself an edge, but it's usually going to be enough to win. So that is all I have for this video. Please keep watching. Check out theforbiddenlimb.com for more of these, like a text image version of this. I'll have that provided, and that has more statistics on where I came up with everything and that kind of thing. So yeah, check that out, and until next time.